a disposition we no doubt want God to practice toward us. Founded on compassion, mercy is the ready willingness to help anyone in need, especially those in need of pardon or reconciliation. Now, if we want to receive this great gift from God ourselves, we have to be willing to give it to others. God bless you, my dear friends, and thank you for watching EWTN and this segment of the wonders of His mercy.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
The conflict in the Middle East continues while Pope Francis calls for an investigation into what he describes as genocide in Gaza. And how might Trump's cabinet picks set the tone for U.S. foreign and domestic policy? Foreign policy expert Dr. Walid Phares and GOP strategist Matt Schlapp weigh in. Actor and TV host Mario Lopez discusses faith, family, his career, and his new movie, Once Upon a Christmas Wish. And the U.S. bishops wrapped up their meeting last week, and the Vatican has approved an obscure new rite of the Mass. The Papal Posse, Father Gerald Murray and Robert Royal, are here with analysis. Plus, the chosen director, Dallas Jenkins, talks about his new holiday film, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. A jam-packed world over begins right now.
Now, Raymond Arroyo.
A warm welcome to all of you joining us in the United States and the world over. What a show we have for you tonight. If you'd like to comment, send me an X post. I'm at Raymond Arroyo or at Real Raymond Arroyo on Instagram. Lots to get to. Middle East tensions continue to rise, and in Europe, President Biden shifts his Ukraine policy in the waning days of his administration. Here with some analysis is co-host of War and Freedom, the podcast, Dr. Walid Phares. Dr. Walid, I want to ask that we start with this ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Iran's president called on Pope Francis to use his influence to calm tensions. But just this week, Pope Francis suggested that an investigation to determine if Israel is committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza might be in order. Walid, your reaction to that call by the Pope, and will this inflame the already volatile situation in the region, not only in Gaza, but in Iran and Lebanon as well?
Raymond, you know and I know that this is not traditional, that the Vatican involves itself in not just an opinion, a moral opinion, a call for the end of the war, which is very normal, or visits, or solidarity with the victims. This is becoming part of international diplomacy in the sense of international law in a situation of war. So the question for us would be, if the Vatican is shifting to that position at this point in time, well, why doesn't the Vatican talk about the genocide in Darfur? That's last year and the year before, which has been confirmed by the international organization. More than 300,000 Black Africans, and I'm underlining this, have been killed by jihadists. Nothing about it. What about Syria? The investigation of a genocide in Syria by the Assad regime and the other jihadists, 400,000. And I could go on. I mean, the list is very long. So something political may have happened after that, influenced by Iran's regime, Islamic regime, and the Vatican, or people in the Vatican. I'm not sure if it's the whole government of the Vatican.
At the same time, and Walid, you tell me if this is somehow connected, according to multiple reports, the International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu, his former defense minister, and Mohammed Deif of Hamas for crimes against humanity for their actions during the Gaza war. Walid, what do you make of these warrants, and do they carry any weight?
First, this is crazy. The ICC has completely shifted to the camp that supports the Islamic regime of Iran. And let's be clear about it, the Muslim Brotherhood, even the Eastern Bloc, that would be China, North Korea, the Taliban, they have become sort of a lobby a lobby with very important weight, because the ICC, there is nothing above the ICC except the Security Council of the United Nations. For them, again, I make the same argument very quickly. Nothing about the genocides in the region, nothing, no Darfur, no Syria, no Iraq, no Yazidis, nothing. And they focus on the arrest of the leaders of a democratic government without even investigating. That is very sad. And I think there will be reactions. The loss of credibility of the ICC is going to come back to bite them at one point.
Florida Congressman and member of the House Armed Services Committee, Mike Waltz, is saying the ICC has no credibility and that the allegations against Israel have been refuted. And so we'll leave that there. Hamas's acting Gaza chief, Khalil al-Hayya, said in remarks broadcast on Wednesday that there would be no hostages for prisoner swap deal with Israel unless the war in the Palestinian enclave ended. He said this: without an end to the war, there would be no prisoner swap. Walid, what does that mean for the hostages and their families?
Well, in our own conversations immediately after October 7 and into the early weeks of 2024, we just concluded that they're going to be using the hostages for many purposes, one of which is to secure the exit of the last commanders of Hamas from Gaza. And that's exactly what they're trying to say. We're not going to give Israel back and the international community, including the United States, any hostage. We want you to recognize us, to stop the attack against us, so to survive. They want Hamas to survive and then launch other October 7, as they said online many, many times. Or if Israel doesn't accept, they want the hostages as an exchange to exit Gaza. That's why they don't want to release them for those reasons.
Walid, the Biden administration announced Wednesday, and I'm shifting gears here because I don't want to run out of time, that it would give Ukraine long-range missiles to deploy in mainland Russia, which the Ukrainians have already launched. The Biden administration has also vowed $7 billion in military assistance to Ukraine by the time President Biden leaves office, including a new package. Here's Ukrainian President Zelensky talking about that decision. And he says, we have a new support package from America. It is worth $275 million. The package includes drones, ammunition for HIMARS and artillery, and most importantly, mines to stop Russian assaults. This will really strengthen our guys on the front line. Walid, why is the U.S. ramping up efforts to help Ukraine at this late hour and tempting Putin to launch a nuclear strike? Is this an act of rebellion, if you will, against not the Russians, but against the incoming administration, leaving Trump with a hot war on his hands, possibly a nuclear one?
You read it very well. This is a kind of an intifada against the incoming policy of the Trump administration. First of all, it's not traditional, it's not normal that a sitting administration, after being beaten in the ballot box, to be doing heavy decisions on international politics, on wars, and supplying one side against the other. Now, we understand that we need to protect, we have protected Ukraine big time with billions and billions of dollars. Now the effort should be to create the environment that this departing administration and the incoming administration need to create for a ceasefire and negotiations. It's not just sending ballistic missiles or weapons. It's agreeing with one of the parties, in this case, Ukraine, to start firing those ballistic missiles inside Russia, and Russia is a nuclear state. This is illogical, and it should change.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said he would retaliate against Ukraine with frontier missiles after the U.S. and the U.K., by the way, gave renewed support and resources to Ukraine. On Thursday, Russia sent a volley of missiles into eastern Ukraine. The latest incident as tensions continue to escalate in the region, Walid. Ukraine says one of those missiles was an ICBM, but that it was being disputed. What happens now?
What happens now is critical days between now and obviously January the 20th. I mean, I hope that the American public understand that the next policy is going to be developed by President-elect Donald Trump. And if he makes more statements, for example, that would be encouraging about what his intentions are. He cannot obviously issue any policy or executive orders, but he can say, my policy, which was approved in these elections big time, is to stop that war. Now, obviously, there are some certain contracts that have been contracted by the previous administration, and the contractors are very, they want to get that money. but unfortunately, this could cause a lot of damage to our foreign policy and to the two sides of that war.
In our last seconds here, Walid, speaking of the next administration, what do you make of President Trump's choice of Senator Marco Rubio for Secretary of State? How would that appointment change, you think, the U.S. foreign policy over the next 4 years?
Well, let me tell you very quickly. The 4 assignments, nominations that the President-elect has done were all in line with his vision, strategic vision of making sure that America is defended, is protected, and it's deployed all over the world to protect our sovereignty and also to assist our allies. Marco Rubio understands this policy for many decades. He knows the Islamic regime in Iran. He knows the jihadists. He knows how Russia, North Korea works, but also another appointment, which is the national security advisor, Michael Waltz. He also has served in the national security environment. I am happy with those appointments, and hopefully with other appointments that will come and create really a cabinet that can protect America.
Walid Phares, we will leave it there. Iran, an imperialist republic, and U.S. policy is available now in bookstores and online. Walid, will check in with you in the days ahead.
Thank you.
President-elect Donald Trump has been busy filling cabinet positions, some well-received, others fraught with controversy. What do these choices say about Trump's vision for his final term, and what will his U.S. domestic policy look like? For perspective, we're joined by political commentator, chair of CPAC, Matt Schlapp. Matt, thanks for being here. President-elect Donald Trump has chosen several Catholics to serve in his cabinet across the administration, including some who have appeared on this program: environmental lawyer RFK Jr., 3-term Senator Marco Rubio, Representative Elise Stefanik, as well as Sean Duffy. Matt, what do you make of those picks so far, particularly RFK Jr.? Kennedy's a longtime critic of how corporate interests have captured the public health agencies meant to regulate them, and the outside corrupt role of Big Pharma. What does his nomination as HHS Secretary mean to the citizen?
Well, I think it's got a lot of people inside the Beltway upset, and I think it's got a lot of people around America both confused and kind of excited. I mean, this whole Make America Healthy Again brought together a really interesting coalition of people that don't ideologically always match up. I thought, look, we invited RFK Jr. to CPAC. We're the first conservative group to invite him to speak, and he's a very interesting guy. I thought his initial pro-life answer was right on the money until his staff mugged him and told him he can't talk like that as a former Democrat. I think he's very open on questions of life, and I think he's a very interesting pick, a super interesting person.
Tom Homan, a Catholic and the former U.S. Border Patrol agent, is President Trump's pick for border czar. Now, that title doesn't come with an agency or a budget or workforce behind it, which is why Homan, I guess, doesn't need confirmation. My question is, recently during the fall meeting of the Catholic bishops, several expressed, or the entire body of bishops, expressed their support for immigrants in the United States, setting up what could be a contentious time between the Trump administration and the U.S. bishops over the mass deportations. Matt, the U.S. bishops get hundreds of millions of dollars from the U.S. government for their migration services programs. Are you concerned about what this could look like, the Catholic-Trump interaction in the coming days with that layering on of hundreds of millions of dollars that may go away from their coffers?
Look, this is a conflict we need to discuss openly. The money that Catholic Charities gets to facilitate the open border and moving illegal migrants all around this country, I think those of us who are faithful Catholics need to have a conversation about the appropriateness of this. And Tom Homan is a good man. He's a friend of mine. I have a high regard for him. It's true that he's going to be working at the executive branch. I think it's smart to kind of separate that from the other border questions of enforcement. And I think, we can have a conversation about the 1.9 million illegals who are here who are ready to be deported because of their additional crimes, in many cases violent crimes. There's subsections of just the 15 million that I think is much higher than that Biden admits to allowing in, who are dangerous in these communities all over the country. I think we should all be able to agree on that as the right place to start.
Matt, who do you think is going to have the most trouble being confirmed? I mean, Matt Gaetz just withdrew his named from consideration as Attorney General. Who else might be in trouble? Your thoughts?
Well, that's a really interesting point. I think RFK Jr. is going to have some rough sledding. I can't imagine he's going to get the benefit of getting any of his former Democrat friends to vote for him. Although, some Democratic governors and others have said they're for him, which is really interesting. I think the Collins Murkowski refusal to support Matt Gaetz before there was even a hearing, which is really unprecedented and quite rude. It'll be interesting to see if they continue that dynamic of pushing back against Trump, because it splits open this division with establishment Republicans is how much leeway they're going to give Donald Trump in this second term. So confirmations are important with that. So I'd say RFK is the next one that has the most interesting path to being confirmed.
Matt Schlapp, thank you for the insights, for the analysis, and we will check in with you in the days ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond.
He's an actor and TV host who became a star via the iconic Saved by the Bell. Since then, he's been accessing Hollywood. But now Mario Lopez is leading a new Christmas movie for Great American Family called Once Upon a Christmas Wish. I sat down with him recently in Los Angeles to talk about his career, his faith, and his family who join him in the new movie. Here's my exclusive with Mario Lopez. Tell me how growing up in Chula Vista prepared you for this life, what you're doing now.
Well, growing up in the border town of Chula Vista, it being only a couple hours south of LA, it's a world of difference. Nothing there prepared me
for this,
for anything in Hollywood, other than the fact that I was blessed with two great parents who just celebrated 52 years of being married. And my mom, who worked for the phone company, my father, who worked for the city, very blue-collar folks. They immigrated to this country. I'm first generation here, and I was a pretty hyper kid, and there was a potential to direct that energy towards a negative light and possibly get into some trouble, especially it not being the most upscale neighborhood when I was growing up. So my mom's plan was to keep me as busy as possible so I didn't have any time to get in any trouble, and it worked. So I was the only wrestling, karate, dancing, theater kid that I knew.
Yeah, she sends you to dance class at what, 3 years old?
Yeah, literally I had an activity every day after school. And I just kind of did what Mom told me to do, and it worked out.
And here you are still dancing, Mario, including in this latest movie.
That's right, that's right.
We'll
nice segue, Raymond.
I'm going to get there in a second. Well, I'm with the master. I got to work those in. Tell me, about 10 years old, you start acting. Local commercials, a.k.a. Pablo.
Yeah.
Tell me what that was like for you as a child. Did you enjoy it? Was it wondrous? What was it?
So again, growing up, outside of school, I always had an activity after school, and I didn't know any better other than I just assumed all kids had different activities to do after school. But now I'm so grateful and really appreciate all these activities my parents got me involved in, because I think it helped me not only well-rounded, but have a certain level of confidence in speaking with adults, and I was able to utilize and use all these different sort of traits, talents, what have you.
You're still using them.
And
what do you mean?
And still to this day.
Yeah.
All these years later, I'll be approaching my 40th year in the business, and on my birthday, proud to say I got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which was a nice, beautiful moment. Thank you. And more for my parents. I was really happy to make them proud, and they were both very proud. And I wasn't one of those kids where I always wanted to grow up and be on television. I didn't really have any desire, to be honest with you, but once I fell into it, then I fell in love with it. But I did always love to entertain. I didn't realize that. I love making sure people are having a good time. I love hosting, whether that's my nationally syndicated radio show or my TV shows, or just having people over my house for a game night or for a barbecue. I'm genuinely inquisitive about people. I love hearing stories. I just want to make sure they're having a good time, and I like kind of keeping the festivities and party going. And when I sort of stumbled into that and realized it could become a career, I was like, wow, that's
if I can get paid for this, why not?
That's sort of for me. And so there are no rules when it comes to entertainment. So whether it's singing, dancing, acting, hosting, I love doing it all.
And day drinking.
And day drinking.
I went to Access Hollywood a few weeks ago, and I'm sitting there. Here he is in the afternoon, you're tasting some wine.
That's right.
How often does this happen?
Well, that was my third show that I do 3 different shows every day. I have a nationally syndicated radio show called On with Mario for iHeart. Then I do Access Daily, which is my daytime show where you came and visited. And we have...
And then Access Hollywood.
And then Access Hollywood at night. But the daytime show, we have celebrities and chefs and human interest stories and all these different guests come on. And we have a segment where we interview people at a bar. And yes, that is real liquor in those glasses. And sometimes we do 3 or 4 interviews. I'm like, whoa, I might have to take an Uber here. So every day I'm having like a little something, but I'm getting better with my 6.
How did the Access Hollywood thing happen? I mean, before that it was Extra, right?
I was on Extra, entertainment show for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And then I stayed in the same time slot on NBC, and Access Hollywood had approached me, and I had a wonderful time on Extra. But there was different elements involved, and I thought it was time to kind of make a switch, and I've been incredibly happy there, and been there for 5 years, and I love it. So out of all the shows, I'm sort of I'm nestled into Universal Studios here, and I'm sort of their Mickey Mouse. They like to say I'm sort of the Mickey Mouse.
I noticed on your way in. Yeah, I had to fight off the hordes on the way in.
So it's a lot of fun, and again, feel very blessed to be as busy as I am, especially being a former.
Do you, be honest with me, do you ever get weary interviewing these actors?
I love entertainment, and I'm a fan of entertainment. I love TV shows, I love movies, I love music, and
so it still excites you?
It still excites me because there's constant new content out there, and rising stars and old stars. And when you're growing up interviewing people you've always admired, and they like consider you a friend, or they look at you with such respect and know that you've sort of paid your dues and you've been around for a while, then it makes me feel great. And not a day goes by that I don't thank God for the blessings, and I know everything can end just like that. And I feel very grateful to be doing what I'm doing.
I want to go, and you're in everybody's hotel room. Every time I go to a hotel room anywhere, you don't have to worry about me being in the room with a girl. It's Mario Lopez and his wife now.
Sorry about
both
that.
of
That's
you.
right.
Yeah.
You saw
Every
that.
time I turn the TV on, there's you and your wife.
I like to keep the family involved.
Tell me about A.C. Slater, the character we kind of fell in love with you the first time. Well, my wife fell in love. I was going to stop watching it. On Saved by the Bell. How did you discover that character? And I know you based his look on some people of the day. Well, late 80s, right? 89? 1989.
89 is when, the fall of 89 is when we did our first episode, and we went to about 94, 95. And the character of Slater was supposed to be like Travolta's character on Welcome Back, Kotter, like Vinnie Bob Marino was supposed to be like this Italian sort of streetwise kid.
Tough guy,
Yeah, and just kind of a wise guy. But when I got cast for the role, the executive producer asked us to write down all our interests, hobbies, talents, and what have you. And because Mom put me in everything, so I wrote down wrestling, dancing, plays the drums, all this stuff. And they ended up incorporating that into the character. So people say you're a lot like your character. I'm like, no, my character is really a lot like me.
Yeah, that's right. They built him around me.
Yeah, they built him around me because he wasn't supposed to be doing all that. And so then...
It was a Saturday morning show.
It was a Saturday morning show, and it blows me away that 35 years later, it's still on TV. It sort of picked up a new life when it went into syndication.
Yeah.
And but
why did it click? Why do you think it clicks? And people hold it so dear. I mean, obviously, it's something you encountered when you were younger, so it's nostalgia.
Absolutely.
But there's something else there.
Aside from the nostalgia factor, it's an incredibly diverse cast, and I think there's someone for everyone to relate to. The girls were beautiful, and I think there was an innocence to it.
Yeah.
And it makes you think, I think of a sort of a more innocent, gentle time, right? Because it was just Saturday morning, so we had to keep it pretty
family friendly.
Pretty family friendly, or we were competing with Bugs Bunny.
That's right.
And that's the truth. And so I think there's a sort of charm and cheese that sort of resonates with people, and they may have
and there's a sweetness about it.
Yeah,
there's a sweetness to it. What about the reboot? You did the reboot at Peacock. It was there for 2 seasons.
It was there for 2 seasons.
What happened?
You know, the thing with streaming too, and
you got great tune-in.
Great tune-in, wonderful reviews too,
yeah.
And it was critically acclaimed, and we even got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it was great, and I thought they did a very clever job incorporating the some of the original characters with the new characters, And I think just with streaming now, when Peacock, the NBC streaming service, it's one of those things when once you attract a certain audience, it's all about quick turnover now. Yeah. And so I think we were sort of on the precipice of that, and you're going to start seeing that a lot more once they got you sort of tuned in. It was a very expensive show at the time. COVID happened, a lot of time. There was many different factors, but I'm very proud of what we did for those couple seasons.
And you know, you did come in at the tail end of the 80s, and it still has that 80s vibe, even though it's the early 90s.
Right.
And so for those of us who grew up in that time, it's a way to, it's a touchstone. You're going to be back in one of the specials.
Oh,
watch.
great.
Just watch. You'll produce the next one. Tell me about your wife, Courtney. You meet her in 2008, but explain how you met her.
So I met my wife doing a Broadway show. One of my bucket list items was to perform on Broadway, and I got to do the iconic show, A Chorus Line.
God, I hope you get it.
Hey, very good. Very good. And my wife was working on another show at the time, another Broadway show called Crybaby. She had been working on A Chorus Line, then she left to go do Crybaby. That show closed. I was doing a 6-month run, and she came on the last 2 months. And I saw this really pretty Italian girl, and I was like, oh, who's that? She wasn't really paying much attention to me or giving me much love. And I said, oh, you're playing hard to get. And she said, no, I just wasn't interested. So she either
So you had to pursue her.
So yeah, well, of course, then I had to pursue her. Then she either succumbed to my charm or pressure and ended up finally taking me up and going out on a date. And I thought, okay, I'll enjoy this time while we're here. I wasn't going to try to sort of make anything work with long distance from LA to New York. Yeah. But then I missed her, and she came out one summer when she was doing another show. And I didn't want her to go back, and I asked her to sort of stay. And cut to, we're now married 15 years and have 3 kids and 3 dogs, and I couldn't be happier.
And multiple Lopez dance-offs all the time. Where did those come from, those Instagram? It's a family affair. This isn't just you or a kid. It's a whole family.
My daughter, Gia, is the one who sort of quarterbacks all that.
Okay.
She's like a little Paul Abdul in the making. And she gets us doing all these little TikTok dances. And my wife,
is she the choreographer for these?
She's pretty much the choreographer for these. And
wow.
Usually there are dances that are trending, but then she'll add her own spin and twist to it. And she's really good. And my wife is wildly talented, sings incredible and dances, and so I think the kids might have gotten a little something from her.
And now the whole family is a part of this new Great American Family movie, Once Upon a Christmas Wish.
Yes.
Tell me about this movie. You play a mayor.
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm very excited to be working with Great American Family. I love what they're all about and representing over there. And in this film, I thought it'd be a lot of fun, especially our initial film on Great American Family, to have family in the film.
Hello there. Whoa. Hi. I don't think we've met before, Mr. Kringle. Chris Kringle? How'd you guess? Okay. So, Chris, you new to Long Grove? Just visiting?
Oh, I try to make a trip here at least once a year.
Of course you do. Well, glad you're back. I'm Mayor Ortega. Anything you need, here to help.
I play a mayor of a town just outside of Chicago,
a
real town, charming town, Long Grove. And they embraced us, and we shot there, and it was wonderful. And I go back to visit my old grammar school and discover an old Christmas list that I wrote. The kids encouraged me to mail it to Santa. Then all of a sudden, all my wishes start coming true from when I was a kid. It's a little Groundhog Day vibe sort of to it, and it's really cute, romantic, and it's got a musical element to it. There's singing, there's dancing to my wife in it, which I like. It's sort of a throwback old Hollywood feel.
And your son Dominic.
My son Dominic is in it. He does really good. He doesn't play my son. He plays a precocious little reporter from the school that sort of busted my chops throughout the film. And my wife does play my love interest. And I'm really happy with the way it turned out. And I think the families out there will enjoy it.
You produced this as well.
Correct.
When you came across this property, you thought what, as far as how this could be part of families' Christmas memories and coming together as family?
Yeah, that's what Christmas is all about. And I always say the Mount Rushmore of of life for me are my 4 F's, which are faith, family, fitness, and food.
Oh, I thought football. Okay.
Football, that might be a fifth.
That's 6.
But food for above that, because I'm really a fat kid in real life. I love to eat, and I love food. So, well, you're from New Orleans. You got great food there.
We don't miss too many gumbos.
And in this film, I wanted to not only have a families be able to sit down and watch it, but also kind of have a throwback to those old sort of Bing Crosby kind of feel-good movies right there. I love the music, and I love the dancing, and I love that sort of nostalgia feeling from back in the day, and romance.
Kind of pure romance.
Absolutely.
And I love that you made it a family affair.
Right.
Tell me about your faith. I know in recent years you seem to be more outspoken about your personal faith. Has it revived? I get family as a way of doing that to you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've always, I grew up Catholic, and I've always been proud of my faith, and I know you're not necessarily, they ask you not to speak on it too much, but I'm always very proud of being vocal about my faith, and when asked, happy to talk about it. And as I've gotten older, I've started to build more spiritual muscle, and it doesn't. I don't ever forget where I came from, nor where my strength comes from, or the spiritual muscle I built. And I pray every day, and I think, especially with my family now and being a father, I want to sort of have that infrastructure and be able to instill that with my children, because you need answers in this life, and that's a way to turn to.
And you have to be an example to them.
Absolutely, you have to be an example.
And children who see their father practicing faith, just like reading, the child who sees their father reading has a 80% chance of reading as an adult. Ditto for the father who is exemplifying faith, prayer, going to church. The child will mimic that. But if that example is not there, the numbers drop through the floor.
No, you're exactly right. So, it's important to me to not only instill that into my children, it was also important for me to them have a faith-based education. And it's something that, again, when asked, happy to talk about it and proud to talk about it, and being able to do projects where you don't necessarily have to hit someone over the head with it.
Has the faith influenced the type of projects you want to do?
Yes, it has, especially projects that I'm looking forward to producing and being involved in. Absolutely, those are the stories that I want to tell.
Tell me finally about this movie. Will you do others?
Yes, well, I'm proud to say we will do others.
You and the Great American Family are going to do other films together.
Yes, I produced another one that'll be coming out later on, too, with Carlos and Alexis Pena-Vega, which are another married couple, coincidentally.
Oh, great.
And that was great. We shot that out in Nashville. Turned out really cute, too. And we have 2 more in the pipeline, so I'm excited about the partnership and excited to continue to do more programming like this.
Okay, and Once Upon a Christmas Wish premiering this Christmas on Great American Family.
Yes, Once Upon a Christmas Wish premiering Saturday, December 7th on Great American Family. Hope you all check it out. I think you'll enjoy it.
It's important for families to come together and couples around moments where you can share a moment together, but also have a good time. Be entertained for a little bit by the Lopez family.
There you go.
Or a piece of it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we've gotten all the Lopez family. We've had a lot of the members in the film, and
when does Gia get her? When does Gia get hers?
Gia was in one before, but she's going to resurface. The only one I haven't gotten in is my youngest, Santino, but he'll be coming. Sonny will be coming.
How old is Sonny?
He just turned 5. But he's okay. He's going to steal the show.
Yeah, okay. We'll be waiting for Sonny's debut.
Sounds
Mario
good.
Lopez, thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Once Upon a Christmas Wish from Great American Family, starring Mario Lopez, premieres Saturday, December 7th. For more information on how to watch, visit greatamericanfamily.com. The Vatican recently approved a new rite of Mass for the Mayan region of Honduras and Mexico. Why was this new rite needed? And a parish in Switzerland launches a new AI exhibit of Jesus in a confessional. Riding in with analysis of these and other stories, the Papal Posse, editor-in-chief of thecatholicthing.org, Robert Royal, and canon lawyer and priest of the Archdiocese of New York, Father Gerald Murray. Thank you both for being here. I want to start with the Vatican's recent approval of this so-called Mayan rite of the Mass for a small group of indigenous communities. The permission was granted by the Dicastery of Divine Worship. This is only the second officially recognized variation on the Novus Ordo since Vatican II, the other being that Zaire right in Africa. Reports speak of elements such as ritual dance, women's as incense bearers in place of the priest, and lay leadership in certain prayers during this form of the Mass. Father, at a time when the Vatican is conducting an almost fanatical suppression of the traditional Latin Mass, why are we now hearing about these enculturated forms of the Mass, not only being cultivated but encouraged?
Well, enculturation has become sort of like the sacred object that cannot be questioned in the modern church. And I do question it because the culture that Catholicism established in Latin America is strong. And part of the strength of that culture was that it overcame paganism. And we should not be restoring, or excuse me, should not be including pagan elements in Catholic worship. It sends the wrong message. Catholic worship is a gift from God. Paganism is not.
Bob, we also know that there's a study underway of the Amazonian rite of the Mass for South America. Is this inculturation taken too far? I mean, it evokes all those memories of, we saw Pachamama in the Vatican Garden and other pagan practices, as Father said, being incorporated into Catholic worship. What is driving all of this?
Well, I'm sorry to say that despite the denials on the part of the Vatican, this coming right after the Synod on Synodality raises some eyebrows. Look, the church has been in what we now call Latin America for 500 years, and there always has been enculturation when missionaries go out into new territory. But what have they been doing for the last 500 years that it made it important to announce this just now? That raises one suspicion for me. I was in Guatemala a few years ago at a Mayan cathedral there, and I can tell you that there's still a powerful Mayan, and I don't know if it's quite right to call it pagan, but certainly an alien culture that exists even in a cathedral in a major city where Mayan Indians are a strong presence. So I'm a little bit skeptical of this. I think that they're using the fact that these people down in Chiapas have proposed this Mayan rite, despite their denials, to advance some of the things like women being more participative in the Mass, innovations like liturgical dance. Although I have to say, if you look at the videos, this liturgical dance is pretty tame and not at all what we might imagine from our experience in Western liturgical dance, so to speak.
Yeah, I just don't know why we keep innovating new forms of the Mass as we throw out the old form that upon which allegedly the Novus Ordo is predicated and stands upon. I don't understand that. But at the same time, a year after the removal of Bishop Joseph Strickland from his post as the Bishop of Tyler, Texas, celebrations of the traditional Latin Mass are being forbidden by the Vatican in that diocese, and in the cathedral, rather. Bishop Joe Vasquez of Austin, who's been the apostolic administrator there in Tyler, since Strickland's removal, he made the announcement to parishioners that there would be no more Latin Masses at the cathedral, and it would also be halted in 4 other parishes, leaving only 1 parish offering the old rite. Bob, once again, we're seeing a systematic restriction of the perfectly valid form of the liturgy, and a key part of Benedict XVI's, he imagined, lasting legacy.
Yeah, I mean, it's curious. You can put this in humorous terms, that we enculturate every culture except our own. We had 2,000 years of this Latin Mass, which still has a great power and attracts, as we keep saying, young people and families, and has the capacity to revivify certain parts of the church in the West. It just tells us that there's a kind of a bias in favor of this sort of progressive direction, as if there's no other life in the church. I think that's a mistaken turn, and I think that the more we see of it, the more we're going to be convinced of it.
Yeah, well, I don't want to put it in political terms, but when you ignore the vox populi, when you ignore where young people are, where families are growing, you can only do that for so long before that bubbles over and then everybody feigns surprise. Father, I want you to tie this to this abrogation of the Latin Mass in this particular diocese to this other story. This is an AI version of Jesus Christ, created and mounted in a confessional in a Catholic church in Lucerne, Switzerland. This AI Jesus takes questions from the faithful, Organizers say it's an art exhibit not intended to substitute for sacramental confession, Father. But look, if tomorrow I put an AI Father Jerry serving Mass in your parish every hour, parishioners are bound to take that, make their own inferences. Your thoughts on this, and why place an artistic exhibit in a confessional at all, Father?
No, this is part of that modern deconstruction movement, which basically reflects a hatred for our heritage. It's also, to be quite frank, a blasphemous use of church facilities to do something that the organizers, they probably think it's cute and innovative and cutting edge, but let's look at what we're doing. We're reducing God to an achievement of human intelligence, that we can, create artificial intelligence, and now God himself is going to talk to us after the humans programmed him. Now, we are in an age of destruction of what is holy, sacred, and inherited, and what's the result? Paganism overcomes the Mass, and fake Jesus is put in a confession box so that people can make fake confessions. This is bad.
Yeah, no, I agree. Bob, this AI Jesus is programmed to converse about theological concepts fueled by content from the internet. And the question is, whose theology is being used to power this thing? As Father said, this is Jesus in your own image. There's something profoundly sinister about this, in my estimation.
Yeah, I've seen plenty of these so-called art installations in European churches, and I have to say, this one isn't even the worst. There are many worse than this. But look, confession is one of the places where something distinctive to Catholicism takes place. It's where God forgives our sins fully and forever. And to place this modern electronic machine in that spot, I think I can't imagine anything greater blocking off what is particular to the revelation that we have in Jesus Christ. I mean, other than the Eucharist. I mean, I don't want to suggest to anybody that they mess around with that.
I want to move on to something else here. A Chinese prelate, Bishop Shen Bin of Shanghai, announced a program this week in his diocese to study Xi Jinping, the president of the People's Republic of China. Bishop Shen Bin was appointed by the CCP and eventually approved by the Vatican as part of their secret pact. In a recent conference in the Shanghai diocese, diocesan clergy are being encouraged to study and spread through lay gatherings and sermons the documents of the third plenary session of the 20th CCP Central Committee and the General Secretary Xi Jinping's thought on Sionization of religion. Bob, there is no mention of the study of papal documents or Catholic theology. How is this justified by the Vatican?
Well, obviously, this has become part of that secret accord, that unpublished accord that we have with the Communist government of China. And I'm extremely worried about this, because this Sinicization is not just adapting in a kind of an enculturation way, which is a term that they keep trying to use, to what is the Chinese cultural circumstance. This is a creature of the Chinese Communist Party. This isn't even the government. It's the Chinese Communist Party teaching Catholics to be in harmony with Xi Jinping. It's amazing to me that people don't recognize that this is about the closest thing to brainwashing that you could ask out of the church.
Father, the Cardinal Secretary of State, Pietro Parolin, recently stated with a straight face that religious liberty is sacred and protected in China. Do you buy that, especially in light of this?
It's certainly not. I would respectfully tell the Cardinal, you want to test that theory? Call Cardinal Zen in, have a half-hour conversation. Why don't you watch some videos of what's going on in China? No, this is the fruit of naivete and wishful thinking. If you think when you're nice to communists that they're going to give you what you want, no, they're going to take from you what they want. And this is precisely what's happening. This is, again, blasphemous. To consider that a Chinese communist leader is the subject of study so that his understanding of religion will be incorporated into the Catholic outlook in China. No, I'm going to guess that Lenin and Stalin are envious because they never went this far, but certainly Xi Jinping is getting what he wants.
It's amazing. I mean, even the words of the scripture have been changed to include Xi's thought and communist propaganda. I mean, how this can be embraced, I simply don't understand. But gents, I want to move on. The Vatican announced updated procedures for conducting papal funerals this week. Among the changes, dispensing with the traditional using of 3 different coffins for burial, opening the possibility of burying a pope outside of St. Peter's Basilica. And as far as the public viewing, the pope will be placed in a simple wooden casket instead of a raised bier that we've seen in the past. According to Archbishop Diego Ravelli, the master of ceremonies, Pope Francis has stated on several occasions the need to simplify and adapt certain rites so that the celebration of the funeral of the Bishop of Rome may better express the faith of the Church in the risen Christ. Father, your thoughts on these changes, are they merely practical, or is this Pope Francis' aversion to tradition sort of emerging? And what does it tell us that they keep underscoring this nature that he is the Bishop of Rome?
Well, a couple of things going on here. Of course, this does reflect the Pope's outlook. He's not big on ceremonial. He's not big on, the sort of historical trappings that go with events involving the Pope. Now, all I can say is that I think the people will be disappointed because, people enjoy solemnity and its external expressions. Now, the Pope has already told us he wants to be buried in St. Mary Major's, and they've already prepared a tomb for him there. So that's not a surprise that they would have that ritual. But, I'm one of those people that says, rituals that are done for so long have a presumptive legitimacy and value that may not be appreciated by the next generation. So rather than change things, we ought to look at them and see what they are, because the idea is not exalting a man. It's exalting the successor of Peter as God's representative. And exaltation is part of life. We want to look up to our leaders and we want to recognize their leadership.
By stripping ourselves of these traditions and these practices, you do hollow out the visual witness of the church too. I mean, we were all there at John Paul II's funeral, at Benedict's funeral. There is something majestic about the whole world coming together and mourning the passing of this leader, who's not a political leader, but a spiritual one. So you do need the grandiosity, if you will, of the presentation and the Swiss Guard standing by. This shouldn't be like, the afternoon funeral down at the local funeral home. I mean, it shouldn't be that. Or, a guy shoved in the back of the van like they did poor Pope Benedict. But, gents, before we run out of time, I want to get your thoughts on the U.S. Catholic Bishops' Assembly. Just wrapped last week. 2 interesting things emerged for me. The lay ecclesial ministers are back. I used to call them LEMs before they bounced me from covering the conference. They're so welcoming and transparent, but you can't cover it anymore, Raymond. The USCCB approved the drafting of a new doc to guide lay ecclesial ministry, a follow-up to 2005's Co-workers in the Vineyard of the Lord. And it related that Cardinals Supich and McElroy both called for the creation of a new committee on synodality. Father, has synodality breathed new life into this innovation of lay ecclesial ministry and ministers that, frankly, most of us, I guess, had forgotten about? I always said it was a bad idea.
Well, since we really don't know what synodality means, aside from walking together and listening to each other, we have to look at the main expression of synodality, which was the Synod on synodality. And what was the headline news out of there? Lay people getting to vote at the same level as cardinals and archbishops and bishops. So there's obviously an attempt through this synodality thing to put lay people in charge, to give them authority, to give them directive power, to include them in decision making. So this is what this is all about. And that's very dangerous, because the priesthood, based on holy orders, is a gift from heaven. It's not a human creation. We should not take away priestly authority and give it to lay people. That's not the right thing to do.
Well, Father, if we do it, I hope they'll make us the triumvirate of the lay ecclesial ministry of information with full prosecutorial powers in the canonical courts, and you can be our representative at the court level. Bob, with the call for a new committee on synodality, as if the USCCB bureaucracy doesn't have enough on their plate, will this help us figure out what synodality actually is? Maybe that'll be the goal of the committee.
Well, on matters like this, I like the establishment of committees, and I hope that they take a long time to study the details of all the things that are implied by what they're trying to do, because we don't want to rush into anything on like lay ecclesial ministry. They can take their time, and we'll be happy to wait while they talk these things over. Look, this is the fallout. We know that here in the United States, most of what seems to be sound about that very vague notion of synodality has been in place for years. You know, we have lay boards that handle finances in dioceses and parishes. We have lay people advising bishops and priests about various things, and we have lay people involved. So, you know, if it were done the way we've been able to incorporate it in America, where these people are largely integrated into what is a traditional Catholic structure, it's a pretty good thing. It just seems to me that they keep overreaching this as if somehow this is something that no one has ever heard of in the history of the church. And I think that is demonstrably false.
Yeah, you know, Bob and Father Jerry, as the great Father Jim Gould said many years ago, 19 years ago, now that I'm thinking about it, when this lay ecclesial ministry thing first surfaced, he said, this is literally the clericalization of the laity. And meanwhile, we laicize the clerics. You know, this is ridiculous. It's an inversion of roles. We should be focusing on the things that work, the sacraments, and how to bring the gospel message to people, not creating new offices and hierarchies while we dismantle the hierarchy Jesus left us. Father, I'll give you the last word.
No, you're absolutely right, Raymond. And, you know, the beauty of the Catholic Church is that there's a divinely established order. And being a member of the flock is a great gift from God, because it means you're on the path to heaven. But the flock needs leaders, and God knew that. That's why he put the Pope, the Bishop, the apostles, and the cardinals. And the greatest thing that can happen to a Christian is entrance into heaven, not become a lay minister, not exercise authority, not sign checks in the parish. So what are we talking about nowadays? We're always talking about structures and sharing power. What we really need to be talking about is, how do we get to heaven? How do we live a holy life on earth? How do we love our neighbor? That's what we should be focusing on.
Yeah, no, it all runs back to the first sin, pride. Father, we'll leave it there. Bob, thank you. And for more commentary by Robert Royal and Father Gerald Murray, you can visit thecatholicthing.org. See you soon, gents. You know him as the director of the phenomenally successful streaming hit The Chosen, but tonight he's here to share his latest project. A bit of a change of pace as we approach the holidays. His new family movie in theaters right now is called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. And here to tell us about The Best Christmas Pageant Ever is its director, Dallas Jenkins. Dallas, thanks for being here. The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, the book, it's kind of a modern classic. Tell me how you first discovered the story, and how did the movie come to be made?
Well, I read it as a kid in public school, which is why I was so surprised when almost 20 years ago, my wife brings it home for me to read to the kids. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. And I start reading and I'm like, I don't remember how good this was. This is so funny, so witty, so nostalgic. And then I'm halfway through the book and I'm going, I don't remember this book being so Jesus-y. Like, how do we get away with reading this in public school? I get to the last chapter and the story of these 6 herdman kids, the worst kids in the world, and they hijack the Christmas pageant, and everyone thinks they're going to ruin everything. And it ends up that they're poverty, and that their outsider status actually brings them closer to the heart and understanding of the true story than anyone else. I am crying so hard, Raymond, I can't read. Like, my wife says, all right, give me the book. She reads, she starts crying. We're handing the book back and forth to each other while the other one recovers. And I finished the book and I said, I have to make this movie. I don't know how this hasn't been a movie yet. Maybe God's saving it for me. But I pursued the rights for almost 20 years. Every year I would check in with the rights holders and plead with them. And it was set up at other studios and with other directors. I want to apologize to those other directors who, if they really wanted to do this movie, my prayers to God were keeping them from doing it. So I apologize, but not really. But I finally get to... Yeah, but a few years ago, I reach out again, And they go, give me a call. And I'm like, okay, great. So he says, the studio forgot to renew the rights. We have them back. And just a couple days ago, my mom called me and said, have you heard of this show called The Chosen? And I said, oh, that's funny. The creator is always bugging me for the rights to the best Christmas pageant ever. And she says, are you crazy? He's the only one who can make this movie. You better give him the rights. And so he says, I watched the show and I'm in, and let's talk. So the fact that I'm able to talk to you right now about a movie called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever that I made is a calling fulfilled for sure.
Wow. Well, 2 weeks ago, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever opened with $11 million at the domestic box office, which way exceeded industry expectations. On its Friday opening, it beat out this A24 horror movie, The Heretic, even though it was just showing in less than 200 theaters in that movie. Dallas, what's the message from the audience here? What are you hearing?
Well, this is the cool thing is that's surprising is not only are we hearing from audiences that this is a new Christmas classic and that they were laughing and crying, critics, I mean, we have a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, including a positive review from the New York Times. So there's a glitch in the matrix somewhere that is happening that is causing this movie to resonate, which is really lovely. But yeah, that's what audiences are telling us. And even through this coming, this Thanksgiving gauntlet of competition of Wicked and Moana 2 and Gladiator, I'm like, if we can just survive to December when more people are even more than ever looking for something Christmassy, this movie can continue to succeed.
Well, I want to give folks a glimpse of what they'll be seeing. This is a little clip of The Best Christmas Pageant Ever.
Why'd you have to tell them they get food at church, dummy? Because I didn't think they'd actually walk into a church building.
I'm surprised they didn't burst into flames.
Sorry I didn't volunteer. Did I ruin the pageant?
Oh my goodness, no. Honey, Beth, I will tell you what I told those condescending, hyper-controlling busybodies from church, that while Helen Armstrong might be surprised the sun rises every morning, even though she's not there to supervise it, she is not the only woman in the world who can run a Christmas pageant. And if they don't think I can do it, they are in for a big lesson.
You said all that?
Well, not all of it.
Any of it?
Never mind.
Dallas, last year, a New York Times article argued that Elf and Love Actually, released 2 decades ago, were the last classic Christmas movies to play in theaters. Yet neither film brought to audiences the true meaning of Christmas and the wonder of Christ's birth. How is this movie different?
That's what's so beautiful about this story, Raymond, that I said, where I said I have to make it, because just like you just said, there hasn't been a Christmas classic in theaters in a long time. And when you think of the Christmas classics, even before Love Actually and Elf, like Home Alone and A Christmas Story, movies that I love, none of them talk about Jesus. And this movie not only does in a very explicit way, and it puts a spotlight on the truth of the Jesus story and how it transforms everybody involved, including the churchgoers who've heard the story before. The fact that it still feels like a Christmas classic and not a church sermon, I think, is the beauty of Barbara Robinson's writing in the book. And I'm standing on her shoulders to bring this movie to you. But people who watch this movie come out of it, believers or non-believers, saying, I understand more and love more the true Christmas story than I did before I walked into this movie. And that's a miracle, I think. And that's what I hope will stand the test of time, is that in 20 years, we'll be talking about this film as one of the classics that actually does point people to Jesus.
And it's a lot of fun along the way. I mean, it's really a fun film. Which, we saw it. We watched it with our family. You assembled a great cast here: Judy Greer and Pete Holmes, Lauren Graham. Tell me what it was like, though, directing your kids in this movie. How did that happen?
Well, Judy and Pete will be the first to tell you that the kids that I was directing were them. Judy and Pete were the ones who were screwing around more than even some of the kids were. But they were amazing, and Lauren Graham from Gilmore Girls is amazing. They were all beautiful. The kids, it was challenging at times because any kid, especially you get about 15 child actors, the amount of ADHD in that room could be, put on display at the Smithsonian. So you've got 8 hours to try to get these kids to all focus, and that was part of my job. I have 4 kids myself, including an adopted kid. I've dealt with special needs and troubled children before, so I have experience with this. Now, these kids that I'm working with were neurotypical, but they're child actors, so they're probably not that typical. But it was challenging, but it was so worth it. The kids' performances in this movie are just incredible. Really, the balance between humor and pathos, which is very difficult to find in a child actor, was really something special. I'm really proud of it.
I love it. Well, I encourage people to go see it. It's a fun film for the whole family, and you come away with something more than a hummable song or a goofy slapstick ad, shtick that you remember. It's far more than that. The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, directed by Dallas Jenkins, in theaters now. For showtimes, tickets in your area, go to bestchristmaspageantever.movie. Dallas Jenkins, Merry Christmas. I know it's early, but Merry Christmas.
Oh, it's never too early for Merry Christmas, so thanks for having me on.
That is all the time we have for now. Here's wishing you a happy and blessed Thanksgiving next week. And for families interested, I have a picture book called The Magnificent Mischief of Tad Lincoln. It reveals the background of the turkey pardon at the White House and really the foundations of Thanksgiving as a national holiday. Check that out. It's on my website, RaymondArroyo.com. See you on Thursday, December 5th. Until then, we'll be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, happy Thanksgiving. Bye now.
To order this episode of The World Over from the EWTN Religious Catalog web store, log on to EWTNRC.com 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or call 1-800-854-6316.
I'm Tracy Sable. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, war in the White House. Ukraine says that Russia launched a powerful missile that escalates tension in the region.